Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Robert Brill, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I am so excited about our time together. As we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we'd like to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today, and then we want to talk about what you're working on today and or for tomorrow, okay?
Sure, love it.
Thanks for being here, bud. So where were you born?
Pasadena, California.
Oh, it's a beautiful place.
I don't like Pasadena.
Really? Why is that?
You know, I've worked there twice, and both times I worked there, I didn't like the jobs, and the city feels small.
Oh,
I need big. I need
I got
grand.
you.
Meanwhile, the funny part is I'm in an office, which is my garage, with no windows.
Right.
But I don't need windows because I have a Mac.
See how that worked? So quick question for you. Where did you grow up?
Glendale and
Okay.
Burbank. So Glendale is where I lived. Went to school at Hoover High School. I forgot for a moment.
Yeah.
And spent a lot of time like at the Burbank Media Center, like on ditch days. That's where I would go and watch movies and hang out.
Yeah. So what was your favorite thing about growing up in Glendale?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't
That's
think I had
okay.
a favorite thing about growing up in Glendale. I didn't enjoy growing up in Glendale. I feel like a very negative person. I'm not trying to be a negative person, but like I never want to live in Glendale. I just didn't like it. I felt like an outcast in the city. I was a
What
young
made you
kid.
feel like an outcast?
A lot of people spoke a different language, and because
Okay.
they spoke a different language and I didn't,
Okay.
I just, there was a lot of like,
So they spoke a language other than English.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so so the language they spoke was like Armenian and Persian, Iranian. I don't really know the details.
That's
So it's
okay.
not the fact that it was those languages, but just
Yeah.
in general, I felt like it could have been any language.
Yeah.
I just felt like an outsider.
Gotcha.
And there were a lot of people who, like were like they had families and they had cousins. They had all these big groups of people they were already in with. And I'm
Right.
an only child. It was my
Yeah.
parents and me, and it felt like I didn't have access to the network that I think a lot of other people would have gotten. It's
Gotcha.
fine. I just wouldn't
Yeah.
live in Glendale again.
I got you. So growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
My mom.
Okay. Why?
She taught me a lot. Very hard worker. My parents went bankrupt when I was a kid, like when I was like 8 or 9 years old, fully bankrupt, lived in an apartment. My mom kept working. She worked 30 years at a dental laboratory.
Mhm.
Great business. And yeah, like my mom and my dad were married, but my dad kind of struggled finding work because he never picked up computers.
Right.
And so because of that, my mom was really shouldering the financial burden for the household.
Gotcha.
And so I learned a lot from my dad and my mom
Yeah.
in different ways.
Gotcha. At Hoover High School,
Mhm.
do you have a favorite subject?
I remember the teacher, his name is Mr. Lundeen, biology, and then Miss Grace Thompson, English. I wrote a really cool set of stories, and she thought I was like an amazing writer. So much so that she recommended me that I go to like this like camp for gifted writers or something like that. And I still have the book that I wrote and the story that I wrote from 9th grade. So those two were my two favorite teachers off the top of my head.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in high school, did you play any sports?
I was on the football team for 2 weeks.
Were you?
Yeah, my friend Chris, I'm just going all out here. So
It's
my
all
friend
right.
Chris Radulescu, he was like, let's join the football team so we can meet girls. I was like, all
Yeah,
right. And I joined the football team. And I know nothing, and I still to this day know nothing about football.
right.
And like I was like, man, this is dangerous. I'm not gonna be on the football team because
Yeah,
like you had to practice all summer long until fall. And I was like,
yeah,
that sounds really hard. I don't want to do it.
yeah,
But he was good. He ended up being the kicker for our football team.
yeah.
Um,
So you were in football for a whole 2 weeks.
whole 2 weeks. It was so silly and so
Super long
embarrassing.
career.
So embarrassing.
Yeah. So my son came home between eighth grade and his freshman year, eighth and ninth grade
Yeah.
during the summer, and told us that he was going out for football.
Oof.
And his mother and I looked at him like, okay.
It's
He wasn't
dangerous.
a football fan. He didn't even watch football on television,
You want to
right?
meet girls.
So, yeah, so the first thing I asked him was, I said, "Is there a girl involved?" Because all the stupid stuff I've ever done in my life, I was trying to get a girl's attention. Okay, guaranteed. I'm like, is there a girl involved? He goes, "No, Dad. There's no girl involved."
Really?
Turned out it was his best friend. Sound
Okay.
familiar?
Yeah.
Best friend asked him to go out for football with him.
Right.
So he goes out for football, and the end of two-a-days, right? After his 10th practice, it's Friday night, I go out and pick him up because I figure he's going to need his dad. He gets in my brand new F-150, slams the door, and I have a thing about people slamming doors. And I said, "So what's wrong with you?" And he goes, "Dad, I'm mad." Okay. He said, I'm a backup right guard because at the end of two-a-days that week, they hand out assignments, right?
Okay.
And so he's like, "I'm a backup right guard. I don't want to be a backup right guard. I want to be a linebacker. I want to be a tight end. I want to be a wide receiver." I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever played organized tackle football before in your life?" And he goes, "No." I said, "You think your coaches know that?" And he goes, "Well, yeah." Like, well, okay, here's the way I see it.
Right.
You can keep whining and you
Right.
can ride the bench for the rest of the season. Or when you go back to practice on Monday, you can strap on your helmet, you can line up and hit the guy across from you in the mouth. Next play, hit him harder. Next play, hit him harder. You can show them through your actions, not through your words, that you're ready for a promotion.
Yeah.
Monday afternoon, I go pick him up at practice. He's still practicing. The varsity coach, Michael's in JV because he's a freshman, comes clear across the field. Mr. Litton, who is that? I said, "That's my son, Michael." He goes, "Well, he doesn't play like him. What happened between last Friday and today?" I
Right.
said, "Well, we had a talk." He said, "Well, keep talking to him." By his fourth game, he had been elected team captain, JV,
Wow.
starting right guard, starting inside linebacker, starting special teams. They were
Right.
such a small squad, they had to play Ironman football.
Right.
He plays the entire season. At the end of the season, he gets promoted to varsity for their one playoff game, starting special teams as a freshman. Okay. The coaches keep coming up to me all season. "Wow, we're so pumped about Michael being on varsity next year. He's going to be on varsity. He's awesome, this and that." Right. We're in the truck. They lose their game. We're in the truck going back to the house. He's in the back seat. I said, "So are you pumped up about next season?" He goes, "Nope." And I said, "Why is that?" And he goes, "Dad, I don't want to play football anymore. Playing
Right.
football made me love basketball even more. I want
Yep.
to play basketball full time if that's okay." I said, "Of course it is." I never once told my kids what they could or could not do,
Yeah.
but I did tell them that they will meet our standard.
Right.
So if they choose to do it, they're not quitting.
Right.
They're going to finish what they started, and they're going to do it to our standard.
100%.
That was it. That was the end of his football career. And thank God.
Right.
I was cross-eyed and drooling the entire time that he was playing.
Right.
Because you spend your whole life protecting these children, right? And then they go out and these people are cheap shotting them, and you just unbelievable.
Right.
Unbelievable. It was
Yeah.
quite an experience.
I'm sure.
So growing up, so you go out for football for 2 whole weeks.
Yeah.
And so light it up, right? So then you graduate from high school. Where
Yeah.
do you go from there?
Cal State Northridge, went to
Yeah.
school.
Okay.
So I started, I mean, my freshman year was 1999,
Yeah.
and joined a fraternity a year later, Pi Kappa Phi, and met my best friend in the whole wide world.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's my big bro uh, in the fraternity, and his name is Anthony. And he's at my wedding. I was at his. We're still friends. We live close by, and it's one of the most cherished friendships I have.
That's cool. What did you major in?
Business administration.
Okay. So you get your degree in business administration at Cal State Northridge. Where do you go
Yeah.
from there?
Well, so I consider it part of my career. 2003 is where I interned at Universal Music, and
Okay.
so we were doing. It was called guerrilla marketing, but it was really social media marketing. This was '03, so before it was called social media.
Yeah.
Anyway, that helped me land a job. 2 weeks out of college, I got a job at Universal McCann, unrelated to Universal Music. Universal McCann is one of the largest multinational ad agencies in the world. And so the Universal Music job was structured relatively similarly to the Universal McCann job, but now we were working on Sony pictures. So 2 weeks
Right.
out of college, I got a job in the career that I'm still in 20 years later.
That's awesome, man. So how long did you work for Universal McCann?
Um, I think like 2.5 years. It felt like a long time, but 2.5 years. '07. So I started in '04 at McCann. So '07, I went to Starcom, which is part of another multinational agency, worked on Disney movies. And then moved to so all of this was in Los Angeles. I moved to New York, worked for a mid-sized agency working on Sony and Disney video games,
Yeah.
among others, Capcom and Bethesda and a few others. And yeah, and then I got want me to continue on with the rest of the I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick question. So at Universal McCann, which is your
Yeah,
first job in what you do now, right?
yeah,
In your
yeah,
industry,
yeah.
what was the one most important thing that you learned?
Um, I will give credit to the boss of the team. His name is Elias Splishner. Right now, he's at Sony. Um, has some massive title, global head of marketing or something like that for Sony Pictures.
Yeah.
And he created a very engaging, inclusive, non-threatening environment.
Okay.
But there's a lot more to that. I mean, my passion and love and just enthusiasm generally for this business comes from that job.
Okay. So you kind
So
of fell in love with it.
100%.
Okay. So why would you leave Universal McCann?
Um, I was starting the promotion route. I was like, all right, I don't want to. So here's the thing, right? There are the first 6 months of working there, I didn't know anything. They were just paying me not to make mistakes and to learn the business. Um, but it's like, okay, then you start to think about career. Like
Yeah.
what does the career look like? And I didn't particularly have aspirations to work in the entertainment business. In fact, I typically avoided the entertainment business. But I wouldn't I would say that I would have loved to work in the entertainment business, but I wasn't particularly passionate about it.
Yeah.
Um, so in that time, you start to realize that there's like career paths you can take. Are you going to be a big agency guy? Are you going to be a seller? Because a lot of people transition from agencies to selling to agencies.
Right.
Are you going to be an entertainment guy? So Elias Plischer, for example, his very definite clear path was, or career path was, I'm gonna he got a master's degree at some point, and then he still works at Universal, I mean, at Sony Pictures,
Right.
transitioned at one point. He clearly had the vision of wanting to work in the entertainment business. I didn't
Right.
have that.
Yeah.
I wanted more diversified experiences. So I went to a place where I thought I could get a promotion. I wanted to see what everything else was like, and I
Gotcha.
found that it wasn't as robust or interesting or dynamic or amazing and you don't know. It's like I grew up in Los Angeles, you live in New York, which I
Mhm.
did at one point. Like it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
So it was like that in different jobs that I took as well. It was dramatically different. But yeah, I left because I wanted experiences. I was
Sure.
really fascinated with like like um selling and having autonomy. I
Yeah.
had I had zero autonomy at that point, which is fine. I didn't know anything.
Right.
But I was like, man, I was like paying attention in the back of my head, like, man, these sellers are making a lot of money. That's interesting. And they have autonomy. That's interesting. So I just kept that in the back of my head. I wanted more experiences.
Sure. So you go to the next company. What's the next company?
Starcom,
Okay.
which is owned by Publicis, and they're based in Chicago. That's where their big office is, and they're also multinational. I was working on Disney um, for Starcom.
So was that the main attraction, was working on the Disney account?
It was a promotion.
Okay.
Disney is notoriously difficult to work on.
Are they?
Yeah, I mean, difficult in a way that's good. Like,
Yeah.
here's what I would say: like, their 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 focus on details
Yeah.
is impeccable. That's why Disney is what Disney is because
Yeah.
they do things with expert execution. But on the advertising side, it was far less interesting because we had far more. At even though I was very junior at Universal McCann, I had the team, our business had a lot of autonomy to create really compelling, interesting ideas.
Gotcha.
At Disney, that idea generation component wasn't housed at Starcom, it was housed inside Disney. So what we were left with was very mechanical, ad buying work. There was very little creativity to it that I
Gotcha.
found compared to
Gotcha.
Sony Pictures.
Okay. So you go, you're there for how long?
Oh, like 9 months.
Okay. And then where do you go from there?
I decided to move to New York.
Okay.
Um, and I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do with my career because I was like,
Yeah.
"Man, I didn't enjoy the job," and I was like, "I'll move to New York, or I'll go back to get a master's degree." I never got a master's degree. I
Yeah.
barely passed the, GED or what, not the GED, the, LSAT or GMAT or whatever the higher education thing is. The higher education test, like, I studied
Right.
for it, like, I barely got, like, a minimum score.
So the
Like,
graduate standardized test you didn't do so
yes,
well on.
I
I
didn't do
got you.
so well.
That's okay.
Um, because everyone I worked with at Universal McCann, like, ended up getting master's degrees. I was
Yeah.
like, "Am I the dumb one here, not going that path?" And it worked out fine.
Yeah. That's cool.
So I moved to New York, working for kind of a small mid-sized agency.
So moving to New York and taking that job with the new company, what was that like?
Glorious. I loved New York, and I still do. I love New
Okay.
York. It was like, I mean, advertising has its biggest sort of peak in New York. It's the home of advertising in this country. And I just, I feel like if what I realize is I'm really passionate about advertising. Like, that's
Right.
where my head is at. So it felt like a rite of passage. Like, I have to work in New York, in advertising. And so I did. I was there for a year and a half. I would have liked to stay longer, but um, changed jobs and they wanted me to come back to Los Angeles.
Not really. So
Yeah.
when you changed jobs, why did you go to that company?
Eh. So I got caught freelancing
Okay.
for a competitive agency. So what happened was, the job in New York I had was the easiest job I've ever had.
Okay.
Like, usually when you're working advertising, you're spending lots of hours and lots of time, like, at night working. Like,
Yeah.
many jobs you work till 9 o'clock routinely. There, I was out the door at like 6:15, 6:30. Everyone was like, that was the nature of the business. And I was like, all right, this is cool. So I had all this extra time.
Right.
So I freelanced for an agency in Los Angeles. And so I could take advantage of the time difference.
Yeah.
And that was, that's me being a little bit like aggressive with my career, being a little bit entrepreneurial. I really wanted to work at that agency. I really liked the people I met, even though they didn't hire me right off the bat.
Right.
So I took a freelancing gig with them while I was also working for this other agency. And the minute they found out, I sent the wrong email at the wrong time to the wrong sales representative who notified my current bosses. They thought I was like stealing business. I wasn't stealing business. It's just like, run a media plan for these guys, run a media plan for these other guys. Like, it's the
Right.
same work, just different clients. Um, so they fired me the next day, not surprisingly. Like,
Hmm.
I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, so then I got a full-time job, but they're like, you can take this job, but you got to move back to LA. So I did. And my career, and I knew my future was with them. I knew it.
So you
I
weren't
knew,
really doing anything wrong.
no.
They just took it the wrong way.
Yeah, they thought that I was actively, like, ushering clients away from the agency I was employed with, which I
Right.
wasn't doing. I was literally just, it's like two separate things, the same
Right.
work for two separate businesses. Like they had different clients, etc. Like I wasn't senior enough to have that
Yeah.
capability. You know what I'm saying? I was just like a middle manager, like running campaigns.
Well, let's be honest. When you got done at 6:15 in New York, it was still 3:15 out here.
Yeah, about
There was
3
plenty of
hours.
time to keep working, right? Especially if you work till 9:30 at night. That's a whole day for some people.
Yeah. Yeah, I had all this extra time. I would put together media plans at lunch. I never had the ability to actually like the reason our business is structured the way it is right now is because the 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 work of selling and creating relationships with clients is very hard for me.
Mhm.
Just from the perspective of like, I saw how big agencies do it. They take them out to lunches and dinners, and it's a year's worth of sales cycle, and you got to understand the movement of people and politics, and that's just way too hard for me.
Right.
I'm a practitioner of ad buying fundamentally. That's where I feel most comfortable. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to do more of it, partially because I wanted to make more money. Living in New York is expensive,
Yeah.
but also because one of the themes that I'm realizing throughout my life is like I wanted to rise to the magnitude of responsibility. I wanted to create more momentum for myself
Right.
so that I could get more experience so I could have bigger responsibilities and see if I can meet the needs of those responsibilities. That
Yeah.
was the ultimate goal. And
Yeah.
a little bit
That's
of an
cool.
entrepreneurial spirit as well, I think.
Yeah. That's cool. So you go back to LA.
Yeah.
How long are you with that company?
For like 5 years.
Okay. Were you
So,
still freelancing with the other company on the West Coast?
the New York company, I was there for a year and a half. It was actually probably like a year and 4 months, somewhere around there. The company in Los Angeles that I was freelancing for was basically all of '09, almost 5 years, like 4 years and like 8 months or something like that.
Gotcha. So there was some overlap.
Yeah, there was a little bit of overlap.
Gotcha.
And, well, not including I'm talking about full time, not including the freelancing time.
Right.
With the freelancing time, it's like 6 years
Right.
or maybe even 7. I didn't yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little more overlap than, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But that company, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
No,
I
go
could
ahead.
go
Go ahead.
forever.
Go
No,
ahead.
that
I'm
the
listening.
company I was with, and they really gave me massive opportunities. Even like one of the things that I think, so 2009, my job, I got promoted that. So
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.